Picture this. You're standing in a place you know you shouldn't be. Your heart is pounding so hard you can feel it in your throat. Every instinct in your body is screaming at you to run, to turn around, to get out while you still can, but you don't. Because somewhere deep in your brain there's this little voice, this tiny nagging whisper that says, but what if? What if I just look a little closer? What if I just stay a little longer? What if I just find out? That voice, that's curiosity. And most of the time it's harmless. It's how we learn, how we discover, how we make sense of the world around us. But sometimes that voice leads you somewhere you were never meant to go, somewhere dark, somewhere dangerous, somewhere you might not come back from. Today, I'm going to tell you 3 true stories. 3 ordinary people who heard that voice and couldn't ignore it. An abandoned building that held a secret no one was supposed to find. A dark corner of the internet that reached out and grabbed someone by the throat. And a quiet suburban neighborhood where one man's curiosity put his entire family in the crosshairs of something evil. 3 stories. 3 moments where everything changed. 3 times curiosity almost got someone killed. So turn down the lights, get comfortable. And whatever you do, don't look away. Let's begin. Before we dive in, I want you to know something. These aren't made up. These aren't creepypastas or campfire tales someone invented to give you chills. These are real stories, sent in by real people who lived through them. I've changed some names, altered a few details to protect the people involved, but the events, the fear, the moments where everything went sideways, all of it happened. So if you've got a story of your own, something you've never told anyone, something that still keeps you up at night, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments, send it to me. Because the scariest stories aren't the ones we make up, they're the ones that are true. Now, story number 1. Story 1, the abandoned hospital. The year is 2019, late October. The air is cold and crisp, carrying that distinct smell of dead leaves and wood smoke. We open on a beat-up Honda Civic rolling down a dark 2-lane highway somewhere in rural Pennsylvania. Inside are 3 college kids. Marcus is behind the wheel. He's 19, a sophomore, the kind of guy who's always chasing the next thrill. Riding shotgun is Tyler, more cautious, already regretting agreeing to this. And in the back seat is John, the quiet one, a crowbar resting across his lap just in case. They've been driving for almost an hour, no streetlights out here. Just the headlights cutting through the darkness, and the occasional glint of animal eyes from the tree line. And then they see it, rising out of the fog like something from a nightmare. Blackwood Psychiatric Hospital. 4 stories of crumbling brick and shattered windows, a bell tower that leans at an angle that shouldn't be possible. Overgrown courtyards swallowed by decades of neglect. This place has been abandoned since 1987. Shut down after a funding scandal that made the local papers. Stories about rituals in the East Wing. A man who walked in 10 years ago and simply vanished. Marcus doesn't believe any of it. To him, this is just another adventure. Another story to tell, another photo for Instagram. They park down the road and kill the engine. For a moment, the only sound is the ticking of the cooling engine and the rustle of wind through dead branches. Tyler turns to Marcus. You sure about this? Marcus just grins. When have I ever been wrong? Famous last words. They hop the fence one by one. John goes first, then Marcus, then Tyler with obvious reluctance. The grounds are a maze of overgrown pathways and collapsed outbuildings. Every step kicks up dust and debris. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls out. Or maybe it's something else. They reach the main entrance. The doors are long gone, ripped off their hinges by vandals or time or something else entirely. Marcus clicks on his flashlight and steps inside. The beam cuts through the darkness, revealing a lobby frozen in time. Overturned wheelchairs, paperwork scattered across the floor, patient files with names and dates and diagnoses that nobody will ever read again. Graffiti covers the walls, crude drawings, profanity, the occasional pentagram that makes Tyler curse under his breath. They move deeper. The first floor is exactly what you'd expect. Creepy, sure, but manageable. Empty rooms, rusted equipment. That thick, musty smell of decay that gets into your clothes and your hair and stays there for days. But then they reach the back hallway, and everything changes. John stops walking. His flashlight is pointed at something in the corner of the room. A mattress, not a hospital mattress. A real one, queen-sized. Relatively clean. Next to it is a pile of food wrappers. Doritos, Snickers, a crushed Red Bull can. None of it looks old. Someone is living here. Tyler's voice is barely a whisper. We need to leave, right now. But Marcus isn't listening. His eyes are fixed on a doorway at the end of the hall, a staircase leading up. Just a little further, he says. Just one more floor they shouldn't go. Every horror movie ever made has taught us what happens when people ignore the warning signs. But Marcus is already moving. And John and Tyler, they follow. Because that's what friends do, even when it's stupid, even when it's dangerous. The second floor is worse. More signs of habitation, a camping lantern, a bucket in the corner that the smell alone identifies. Clothes hanging from a pipe, a jacket, some jeans, a shirt that might have once been white. And then they hear it. Footsteps. Not behind them. Above them, someone is on the third floor, and they're moving fast. The three of them freeze. For a moment, nobody breathes. The footsteps get loud, faster. Like whoever's up there knows they have visitors. Tyler doesn't say a word. He just turns and starts walking back the way they came. John follows immediately. But Marcus hesitates. He looks at the staircase, the darkness at the top, that voice in his head whispering, just one look, just to see who it is. And that's when the sound comes. It's not words, not exactly, it's something deeper, guttural. A low rumbling growl that echoes down the stairwell like a warning from something not entirely human. Marcus runs. He catches up with Tyler and John near the entrance, and the three of them sprint across the courtyard. They hit the fence at full speed, scrambling over it like their lives depend on it. Because maybe they do. Marcus is the last one over, and just before he drops to the other side, he makes the mistake of looking back. There's a figure in one of the second-floor windows, just standing there, perfectly still, a silhouette against the darkness, watching them leave. Marcus can't see the face, can't make out any features, but he can feel the eyes. Cold, patient, like whatever's in that window has all the time in the world. They drive home in complete silence. Nobody talks about what happened. Nobody sleeps that night. And then 1 month later, Marcus sees a news article. Police had raided Blackwood Psychiatric Hospital following an anonymous tip. Inside, they found a man who had been living there for months. A man wanted in connection with 2 violent assaults in a neighboring county. A man described by investigators as extremely dangerous. Marcus still has the photo he took that night. The one from inside the lobby, just a few hundred feet from where that man was living. He never went back. He never explored another building. And every time he thinks about that staircase, about what would have happened if he'd gone up instead of running, he feels that same cold dread settle into his chest. Some doors are closed for a reason. Story 2. The Forum. The year is 2017. Late summer. We're in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. Meet Diane. She's 22. Fresh out of college, with a degree in communications that hasn't landed her anything except a soul-crushing data entry job at a company she can't even remember the name of anymore. She works 9 to 5, comes home exhausted, and spends her nights the same way she's spent them since high school. On the internet. Diane has always been drawn to the weird corners of the web. Creepypastas, ARGs, forums dedicated to unsolved mysteries and conspiracy theories and things that probably aren't real, but are fun to think about anyway. It's harmless. A way to kill time. A way to feel like there's still something strange and interesting in a world that mostly just feels exhausting. One night, she's deep in a Reddit rabbit hole and she clicks on a link she doesn't recognize. The page that loads looks ancient. Plain text on a white background. No images. No graphics, just threads upon threads of conversations in a format that feels like it was designed in 1998 and never updated. Diane scrolls through the posts. They're cryptic, people talking about tasks and assignments, references to locations and dates and times. Some of it is in code or shorthand she doesn't understand. At first, she assumes it's a role-play thing. Some elaborate game she's stumbled into by accident. She makes an account just to lurk, just to figure out what's going on. It takes her 3 days to realize this isn't a game. Some of the posts are referencing real events. A warehouse fire in Ohio, a missing person case in Florida. Small stories, local news, the kind of thing most people would scroll past without a second thought. But the timestamps don't match. The posts about these events were made before they happened. Diane tells herself it's a coincidence. Has to be. People can't predict the future. This is probably just confirmation bias or lucky guesses or some elaborate hoax designed to freak people out. But she can't stop reading. And then someone messages her. The username is just numbers, no words. The message is simple. You're new here. What brings you? Diane doesn't respond. Not at first. She closes the tab and tells herself she's done with this stupid website. But 3 days later, she's back. And she answers. Just curious. Didn't mean to intrude. The reply comes within minutes. That's okay. Everyone starts somewhere, but be careful where you explore. Some doors don't close once you open them. Diane brushes it off as someone trying to sound mysterious. She keeps browsing, keeps reading. The messages keep coming. At first, they're generic. Questions about her interests, her background, what she's looking for. She gives vague answers, doesn't share anything personal. But then the messages change. You work late, don't you? Data entry must be exhausting. Diane stares at the screen. She never mentioned her job. Not once. Not anywhere connected to this account. She tries to rationalize it. Maybe she let something slip. Maybe there's information somewhere in her profile she forgot about. Maybe another message. That apartment complex on Ridgeview. Loud neighbors, right? Diane lives on Ridgeview Street. She deletes her account. Clears her browser history. Runs every virus scan she can find. Her hands are shaking so badly she can barely type for weeks. Nothing happens. Diane starts to convince herself it was just someone messing with her. A lucky guess. A coincidence. Then she notices the car. It's parked across the street from her apartment. A dark sedan with tinted windows. She sees it every night for a week. Same spot. Same time. Engine off. No one visible inside. Then the phone calls start. Unknown numbers. Always at odd hours. She answers, and there's nothing but silence. Not dead air. She can hear breathing on the other end. Slow, patient. Like whoever's calling has all the time in the world. And then comes the envelope. It shows up in her mailbox with no return address. No postage, just her name written by hand. Inside is a photograph. It's her, walking into her apartment building. The angle is from across the street, right where that car has been parked every night. On the back, someone has written 4 words, "Curiosity is a dangerous thing." Diane moves out within 2 weeks. New apartment, new phone number, new everything. She basically disappears from the internet for over a year. She never finds out who was behind it. Never goes back to that forum. Never tells the police because what would she even say? Diane is fine now. Married, as a kid. Normal job, normal life. But she told me something I can't stop thinking about. She said she still checks over her shoulder sometimes. Still feels like someone's watching. Like whatever she stumbled into that night never really let her go. Some doors don't close once you open them. She found that out the hard way. Story 3. The neighbor of the year is 2021. Early spring. We're in a quiet suburban neighborhood somewhere in Ohio. The kind of place with manicured lawns and American flags on every porch and nothing interesting ever happening. Meet David. He's 34. Married to his high school sweetheart. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, ages 7 and 5. He works in insurance, coaches Little League on weekends, and considers himself a pretty normal guy living a pretty normal life. His next-door neighbor is a man named Carl. Carl is mid-40s, lives alone, keeps his lawn neat and his house quiet. In the 3 years David has lived next door, they've maybe exchanged a dozen words. Carl waves when he sees you, says hello if you pass him on the driveway. But that's it. No small talk. No barbecue invitations. Just a polite distance that David always assumed was just how some people are. But then David starts noticing things. It begins with the cars. Late at night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., sometimes even later, headlights will pull into Carl's driveway. Different cars every time. They stay for maybe 20 minutes, then leave. No patterns. No explanations. David watches from his bedroom window. His wife tells him he's being paranoid, that it's none of their business. She's probably right, but David can't let it go. He starts keeping track. Times, license plates, makes and models. He tells himself he's just being a responsible neighbor, keeping an eye out, looking after the community. Deep down, he knows that's not true. The truth is, he's curious, and that curiosity is eating him alive. One night, about a month into his little surveillance project, David sees something that changes everything. It's 1 a.m. He can't sleep. He's standing at the window, looking out at nothing in particular, when a light appears in Carl's backyard. A flashlight, moving slowly across the grass. David watches as Carl walks to the far corner of his property, sets down the flashlight, and picks up a shovel. And starts digging. Not gardening, not burying a pet. Carl is digging a hole. A big one. And every few seconds he stops and looks around, checking, making sure no one is watching. David's heart is pounding. He grabs his phone and starts recording. The footage is garbage. Too dark, too far away, but he keeps recording anyway. Carl digs for 15 minutes. Then he goes inside. When he comes back out, he's carrying something. A bag. Or maybe a bundle wrapped in something dark. David can't tell from this distance. Carl drops it into the hole and starts filling it back in. David doesn't sleep that night. The next morning, he calls the police, tells them what he saw. They say they'll look into it. They never do. A week goes by. Nothing happens. David starts to wonder if he imagined the whole thing. If his mind was playing tricks on him. If he's turning into one of those paranoid neighbors everyone makes fun of. But he can't stop thinking about that hole. So one afternoon, while Carl's car is gone, David does something stupid. He hops the fence into Carl's backyard. The spot is easy to find. The grass is patchy. The dirt is loose. David doesn't have a shovel, so he drops to his knees and starts digging with his bare hands. He's maybe 6 inches down when he hears the voice. "What are you doing?" David freezes. His blood turns to ice. He turns around slowly. Carl is standing at the back door of his house. He wasn't supposed to be home. His car isn't in the driveway. But there he is. David tries to talk, tries to explain. Something about a ball. His kids. Must have thrown it over the fence. He's sorry. He'll leave right now. But Carl isn't listening. Carl starts walking toward him. Slowly. His face completely blank. No anger. No confusion. Just nothing. David runs. He throws himself over the fence so hard he tears his shirt on the wood. He doesn't stop until he's inside his own house with the door locked and his back against the wall, gasping for air. That night, David installs security cameras. He tells his wife everything. She wants to move immediately. He does too, but they can't afford it. Not yet. For the next few weeks, nothing happens. Carl waves at David like nothing ever occurred, mows his lawn, takes out his trash, acts completely normal, but David knows something is wrong. He can feel it. And then, 3 weeks later, David wakes up to a security camera alert. Someone is in his backyard. He grabs his phone, opens the app, and his stomach drops. Carl is standing at the edge of David's property, just past the fence line, perfectly still, staring at the house. David watches the footage in real time. Carl doesn't move, doesn't blink, just stands there for 45 minutes before finally turning and walking back to his own yard. David calls the police again. This time, they actually show up. But Carl is calm, polite, cooperative, says he's been having trouble sleeping, likes to walk around his property at night. Nothing wrong with that, is there? The cops leave. There's nothing they can do. 3 months later, David and his family move to a different state. They never find out what was in that hole. Never find out what Carl was really doing. David told me something I haven't been able to shake. He said the worst part isn't the fear. It's the not knowing. That curiosity never went away. Even now, years later, he still thinks about that backyard. That hole. What Carl dropped into it. And sometimes, he says, wondering is worse than knowing. Because when you know something, you can deal with it. You can process it. You can move on. But when you don't know, when that question just sits there in the back of your mind, rotting away, it never leaves you, and there you have it. 3 true stories. 3 ordinary people. 3 moments where curiosity took them somewhere they were never supposed to go. I want you to think about something. We all have that voice. That little whisper that tells us to look a little closer. Stay a little longer. Find out what's really going on. Most of the time, it's harmless. A locked door. A strange noise. A neighbor who keeps weird hours. But every once in a while, that voice leads us somewhere we can't come back from. So, the next time you feel that itch, the next time curiosity tells you to open that door, click that link, or dig a little deeper, ask yourself one question. Is it worth it? Because sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away while you still can. If this video kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you've got a story you want me to tell, something that happened to you, something that still haunts you, drop it in the comments or send it my way. I read everything, and I'm always looking for the next story. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay smart, and whatever you do, don't go digging in your neighbor's backyard.